Hello, everybody. Coach Val here. So, listen, I want to talk about the video I put out a couple of days ago. In that video, we talked about managing pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes by mitigating blood sugar levels. And I mainly spoke about gaining muscle. And so today I want to jump off of that conversation a little bit more. I want to add more to that conversation, talk more about nutrition as well. We've got a lot of things to cover here, but before we get started, please make sure that you like this video and subscribe so you get more videos about blood sugar management and other components of holistic healthy living. Just make sure you subscribe down below, click like, please, and of course, leave me a comment if you have any questions about any of this here today. I want to make sure I address everybody's questions, and I will respond to every question that I get. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and dive in. I spoke the other day about gaining muscle because the more surface area you have of muscles on your body, the more area we have for the sugars to go as opposed to going into the bloodstream. And so this is really great because instead of sugars loading up the bloodstream, instead of sugars loading up the bloodstream, they're going to be going into your muscles instead. And it doesn't necessarily have to take all that long to gain muscle mass. To gain 5-6 pounds or so of muscle generally just takes a few short weeks for most people, as long as you're doing it right. So let me give you some advice here about how to do that right, and then we'll talk nutrition in just a moment. So you got to understand that you're not gaining muscle during the workouts. Okay. If you're doing bicep curls and squats and all these things, you're not actually gaining muscle then. What you're doing is you're telling the muscles that, hey, if I give you everything you're going to need, you guys are going to grow. And the muscles say, okay, great, but then give us everything we're going to need after the workout. Now, what do they need? Well, they need the right hydration. That's really important that you're getting the right amount of water and preferably not fluoridated water throughout the day. That's very critical. Otherwise, muscle growth can be impeded. The other big thing is that, and this is much bigger, is that they need to get enough protein and dietary fat. So there's a certain amount. Now, I can't give you a broad number because everybody's different. I'd have to sit and do some math based on your body composition, your body weight, and a few other factors. But the point is that when you figure out just how much dietary protein and dietary fat that you're going to need to grow muscle, you want to make sure you're getting that every day. Otherwise, the strength training isn't really going to lead to muscle gains, and then we're not going to be able to curb those blood sugars the way that we need to. Okay, now the other thing is quality of protein and quality of dietary fat. This is important as well because, you can get protein and fat from all kinds of sources, but if it's not a good quality, we're back to the whole problem of even though you're meeting those thresholds, we're not necessarily going to be gaining muscle mass. All right, so now this brings me to sleep. Sleep is when you're going to gain the most muscle by far. If sleep is interrupted, if sleep has any kind of distractions, and I don't just mean distractions that would wake you up, I mean any distractions, like let's say you fall asleep with the TV on, or there's a bright light coming off of your clock radio or something. Anything like that will actually lessen the productivity and the restorative benefits from sleep. So you might sleep 6 to 8 hours and wake up feeling refreshed, but the truth is you're still potentially limiting your muscle growth while sleeping just because you've got other things going on in the room that, again, they don't have to wake you up, but they can inhibit muscular growth. Really good muscle growth comes from total darkness, preferably the same bedtime every night and the same wake time every morning. And ideally, you've also prepped for sleep really well, where for the 30 minutes or so prior to bedtime, you don't really have all the lights on and you're looking at your phone and getting all this blue light. Instead, you prepare the brain for sleep. And that's going to help increase melatonin. And that's going to help you get a more productive, restful night's sleep. So, anyway, gaining muscle, it doesn't just happen in the gym or when you're lifting weights. It's really going to happen while you're asleep. So, you want to be set up properly to do that and ease into your slumber. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about another exercise component that's really critical, and that's cardio. Now, cardio, clinically speaking, is pretty much always a necessity for diabetics or for people who are approaching diabetic levels of blood sugar. And so you don't really find anywhere in the literature that just says, you don't need cardio, don't bother with it. But you do see a lot of that online. You see a lot of people talking about how cardiovascular work is not always necessary and it can be a waste of time and things like that. Well, I would tell you that in terms of the clinical literature, I think you want to play it safe and still invoke some cardiovascular work pretty much every day if you're diabetic. I know that really sounds like a lot, but unfortunately that is what the body wants, clinically speaking, is cardiovascular work 6 to 7 days a week. This really depends again on you. I mean, if you've got a lifestyle and a job where you're moving a lot And I don't just mean walking, but moving a lot, stair climbing, or if you're a mover or something like that, where you're really using every joint and muscle in the body, that's a little bit different. I mean, that is going to certainly take the place of a regular traditional cardiovascular workout. But otherwise, for most people, people who sit throughout the day, especially, walking and strong cardio is something you want to have every single day, or at least very close to that. Strength training, it's going to depend upon how intensely you're training and how many sets you're giving to each muscle group. So that's a little bit different. You might be able to get away with just 2 to 3 days a week, and some people will benefit more from 6 or 7. Again, it depends a lot on the intensity and how close to failure we're getting and things like that. So that's a whole separate video. Guys, if you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I want to keep this channel going. I want to keep bringing you the best information I possibly can, not just for people with blood sugar problems, but also for people of all considerations, all concerns. So please make sure you like and subscribe. I'm going to get into a few more things now here as well. We've covered exercise pretty well, but now let's cover nutrition. So dark leafy greens, and preferably organic dark leafy greens. These are going to be a really good way to go. These are just the kind of foods that they really help to reduce blood sugar levels. And if you do have high blood sugar levels, this is a really good food that you want to have every day. Whether it's kale or broccoli or spinach or anything of the sort, dark leafy greens are going to be a really good thing to take in. And by the way, they're generally not very caloric. You know, you'd have to eat a whole lot of dark leafy greens to even get a moderate amount of calories as compared to most other foods. So usually if we have high blood sugars, there's a little bit of adipose, of excess body fat happening, and dark leafy greens are helpful for that as well. All right, let's talk about a couple of other things now too. Generally speaking, you don't want a lot of dairy if you are pre-diabetic or type 2 diabetes. Again, this depends a bit on the person. It depends how you're combining your foods and drinks, etc. But if you're someone who's having a lot of dairy, I would rethink that at least for the time being until we get your blood sugars fixed, and then you can start to reintroduce it over time. Now, there's a study from Harvard that I have to mention where, and it's not the only study on this, but it talks about the link between processed foods and diabetes or prediabetes. Processed foods really are one of the big precursors. And so in this day and age with where we are right now as a society is so awful because processed foods are absolutely everywhere. I'm going to tell you that right now while your body's sensitive, before we really get to the healthy blood sugar levels that you deserve and need, what you want to do is basically go as whole food and preferably raw food as you can. This is really important. If we continue to get processed foods, we're just going to be making it a lot harder on the body to mitigate those blood sugar levels. You can always come back to some processed foods later when your body's in a less sensitive position. But right now, your whole system is doing all this upregulating and downregulating and trying to keep you going, even in the face of something that's a pretty big threat to the body. So all the more reason why cut out or at least greatly minimize the processed foods and try to greatly increase your intake of whole foods, fruits, vegetables. Like I mentioned, dark leafy greens are a nice part of that. Now let's pivot over to protein and dietary fat. So we've talked about the importance of gaining muscle, but one of the major components to gaining muscle, it's not just the workouts, it's not just the sleep science, and not just the hydration as well, but what's really important is that you're getting the right amount of protein and the right amount of dietary fat for your body. This will vary from person to person quite a bit. Depends a lot on your body weight, your body composition, your activity levels, how many calories you're burning per minute during exercise, things like that. But it's important to know that your protein levels really need to be right. Please don't do what most people do. Most people just say, "Oh, I'm going to eat more protein." That won't do it. Because if you're only consuming, say, 50 or 60 grams per day, and your body needs 100, and then you say, okay, I'm going to try to eat a little bit more, you might end up with only 75 grams a day, maybe 80 grams a day. You're still going to be very shy of the sweet spot that you want. And I can't stress enough that that sweet spot really makes or breaks success for people. I don't want you to look back and say, wow, I was trying, I ate more protein, I did all these things, and somehow it didn't work out. I want you to make sure you reach success. Okay, that's critical. Guys, by the way, please, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe and like the video as well. I want to keep getting this kind of content out to you. So one final point I'm going to make before we finish up. I talked just now about the quantity of protein and dietary fat, and they need to be right. They do, but I'm going to go in a circle here a little bit because they also need to be the right quality. And this is where we're back to the whole foods, the dark leafy greens, fruits, vegetables. It's these same points because if you're getting protein from good, healthy sources and dietary fat for that matter as well, you're going to be in great shape. But if you're getting the right amount of protein and fat and you're getting them from unhealthy sources and processed sources, we're not really going to be in a confident position to really fix your body the way you deserve to fix it. So anyway, guys, I hope this video on blood sugars has been helpful. Again, I'm a top health coach, personal trainer, life coach, all kinds of things. So if you do need help, you can go ahead and reach out to me. I do have some space in my calendar where I can help you. So go ahead and message me down below or feel free to call me anytime. I look forward to your health and your fitness success.